I've been seeing whispers about this, and I haven't covered it yet. To my shame, it's definitely at this point. I'm definitely like, okay, I feel like I need to go ahead and cover this. So I've been seeing bits and pieces, and we've been covering it on and off for a long time. We have the whole situation that's been going on in the UK regarding continued crackdowns on youth access to trans care and like not just access to trans care, but also I think that recently there has been, even the conservative government definitely was saying this, but also the recent Labor government, which is supposed to be more liberal, said something about like they don't want, Keir Starmer, I think, said that he doesn't want this stuff taught in schools. Like basically he wants to return to Section 28, which was basically the British don't say gay law, but only for trans people. He's like, I don't think we should talk about anything to do with trans people in schools, which is horrendous. So I think in response to that, the school safety stuff specifically, a bunch of teenagers in the UK have been occupying the Department for Education building. So this says kids deserve, I think maybe this first sign says trans, and then so trans kids deserve better. They've basically just been peacefully occupying this building, blocking the doors, hanging out in front of the windows. And they've been doing this since Friday, 23rd August. I don't know if they still are, because this article says a week-long occupation of the Department for Education's building by young trans campaigners is coming to a close. The people involved are all trans people under the age of 18, and they are calling for schools and education settings to be, quote, safe and inclusive for gender questioning young people. The group have been camped in the arched recesses of the central London building since Friday 23rd and have had the support of stars including model and activist Monroe Bergdorf, whom I do not know. This has been led by the Trans Kids Deserve Better campaign. I believe I've seen them posting on Instagram. The people involved say the non-statutory draft guidance issued to schools and colleges in England around gender questioning students has led to, quote, confusion and an unsafe environment. So yeah, protect trans kids. They're handing out flyers. The guidance was issued in December 23 under the previous conservative government and has not been updated or withdrawn by the current Labour government. Campaigners camped at the government offices, claiming their rights are being constantly violated and their health and safety put in jeopardy. One of the occupiers, 15 years old, said, quote, I have never felt safe as a trans person in school. I have been bullied in school for my gender to the point I feared I would be hunted and killed. Now, that is not exaggeratory, because a young woman, Brianna Jai, was like, there were two teenagers who like planned her murder for like months. And like one of them poisoned Brianna by feeding her a bunch of ibuprofen. Like basically they chose a young trans woman to stab to death. And we covered that on this show. You know, all three of the people involved were teenagers. Two teenagers decided to kill a third teenager because she was trans. One of them was like weirdly attracted to Brianna, apparently. And they were calling Brianna it, which, you know, some people prefer its pronouns, but in that context, that is definitely explicitly dehumanizing and not what Brianna herself would have wanted. So yeah, for a teenager in the UK to say like, I'm worried that I'm going to be hunted and killed for being trans, that is not exaggeratory. It's not fear mongering. That is the culture there. Like that is the reality of what happens there. And we've covered things happening in the US as well, where trans teenagers are being attacked and killed, sometimes by teenagers and sometimes by adults. Like to be a trans teen is to be unsafe right now, both in the UK and in the US. So they've described their schooling as a, quote, truly torturous experience. The Department for Education, in response to this protest, says it will respond to Trans Kids Deserve Better's request for a meeting, quote, as soon as possible, adding it is, quote, committed to re-engaging with stakeholders. A spokesperson added, it is vitally important that teachers have clear guidance, which is why we are looking carefully at the consultation responses and considering the relevant evidence before setting out next steps to take the RSHE and gender questioning guidance forward. The education secretary has been clear that children's well-being must be at the heart uh, of the RSHE and the gender questioning guidance for schools. So that kind of, to me, reads like a huge nothing burger. Like, that's just words. You're just saying, like, we are taking this very seriously. It's performative speech, or unperformative speech, whatever. There was a philosophy video that was talking about, like, there are some types of speech where by saying the thing, you are doing the thing. Like saying, I promise, is both saying I promise, and by the act of saying I promise, you are also doing the thing. You are also making the promise by saying that. Non-performative speech, by comparison, is when big corporations or governments say things like, we are taking this constructive criticism very seriously. It's like by saying that, they are not doing the thing, and they never follow through and do the thing. It's a philosophical concept, but this is what this sounds like to me when they're like, we are committed to re-engaging with stakeholders. We will have a meeting as soon as possible. And then they never have the meeting or whatever. Mitternacht and I are here to ask you to hit like on the video. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe. Click the bell if you feel like it. You don't have to, though. Feel free to check out the other links in the description because I sell merch like this cute tank top. I'm running a GoFundMe to try to move 2,000 miles across the country to a place where I have rights. And I have a Patreon he's smashing his face against my face. I have a friend with a trans teenager in the UK. They pulled him out of school because he was dealing with so much from both faculty and students. Or was that a friend in the UK? Sorry, I inserted that. It could have been in the US as well. Like, that would not be the first time I've heard of that, where parents are taking their kids out of public school, either transferring them or changing them to homeschool or changing them to online school because of harassment that they're experiencing. And we've covered it. Next Benedict, a transmasculine teenager in Oklahoma, had like his head bashed into the wall and then he died. Oh, this was in Missouri. Great. And then, yeah, in Minnesota, which is supposed to be a sanctuary state, a trans girl. Oh, and Next Benedict, who identified as transmasculine and used he, him pronouns, was in the girls' bathroom, which is what conservatives say he should have been doing. And then again in Minnesota, Cobalt Sovereign was a trans girl who was using the boys' bathroom, which again is the one that conservatives say she should be using because she was assigned male at birth. And a male student sucker punched her in the jaw. And had like a broken jaw. She did not die, but still, like, teenagers are having to be concerned, even in sanctuary states, liberal, democratic sanctuary states, and in conservative states, being this concerned about their safety. And it seems like in many places, the government is not on side. Oh, there's more to this article. The group have also taken aim at the health secretary's decision to extend the emergency ban brought in by the previous conservative government on access to puberty blockers for gender questioning youth. Wes Streeting said at the time of that announcement, quote, the evidence should have been established before they were ever prescribed, even though they have a ton of evidence to support puberty pausing medications. So basically, this allegedly liberal government, the Labour Party, which has been voted into power, still continuing extremely conservative Tory policies as it relates to transgender people and trans youth specifically. So good on these young people. Like, I don't know that anything is going to happen, but they're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. You know, they're supposed to be peacefully protesting. This is like the thing that this is what our governments have told us we're supposed to do when we want our voices to be heard. These people are too young to vote. So in order to have their voices heard, they're peacefully occupying the building. And I don't even think they might not even be blocking the doorways. They might just be in the window recesses, because this looks to me like the doorway in. So, you know, it's not like they're even blocking egress in and out of the building. They're not inside the building. They're outside of the building. Police periodically showed up and then went away. Yeah, I'm proud of them for speaking out, and it's terrible that they have to. We shouldn't be putting children through this. Like, we shouldn't be putting young people through this. It's part of why, we before the segment started, we were talking about Greta Thunberg, and it's part of, like, it's terrible that she became famous the way that she did. She was a child who was basically like, oh, because I understand climate change is happening, I don't get to have a chill, like, childhood. Like, I don't get to be a child. I have to grow up and start thinking about and dealing with these bigger issues because, like, I don't have a choice. And these teenagers, like, they shouldn't be forced to try to negotiate their rights with their government. They shouldn't be forced to speak out against their government, but we're kind of like forcing them to grow up faster because the situation that they're in is untenable. Like, they're not being treated well, they're being bullied, and they don't have the resources being provided to them to get better. Like, to improve the climate of the situation for them. Like, they just do not have the protections that they should have. And the allegedly liberal government doesn't care to give them the protection that they are asking for. So, unfortunate, but I'm glad to see them, doing the thing that they're supposed to do in order to have their voices heard. Thank you to the patrons, especially Bo E, Hapax Legomenon Patient Advocate, Tiago Nascimento, Mersh Rolvag, Sarah A, Jack, Amanda B, Michelle Frateroli, Michelle Winter, Wellington Marcus, Danielle McDonald, Suzanne Maynard, DZXN, Jamie Jam, Nova, Sojo, Past Null Infinity, Elizabeth Bartell, Jericho, Athiet, Desi Quiche, Celeste, Mr. Atheist, Liam Hodgson, Kevin Young, and Ella V. Nobody.